what would be a successful foray for Deion going into this game against TCU?
Into this game, I think if they can keep it competitive, the spread is 20.5. If they can, I don't think he's going to go in and say, guys, let's keep it under 20.
Yes, I know.
But I think that would be, don't get blown out of the building because, TCU's doing a little bit of a rebuild. They lost Max Duggan, who was a runner-up for the Heisman last year, Quentin Johnson, who's first-round pick of the Chargers, lost some other really good players. It's not like they're a preseason pick to win the Big 12, but they're still a really good team. It's not an easy trip to make. They're going to play. It's going to be hot in Fort Worth. But I think if they can be competitive and show that they're a legit Power 5 team and hang with them and where it's competitive in the second half, I know that's not something Deion's going to want to sell, but I think that would be something like, okay, they're not going to get embarrassed this year.
Right. And clearly, I mean, what an off-season, if you will, for Deion to move to Colorado. His physical problems himself, what he was going through with that, with surgeries. He will never talk about that sort of stuff. He looks great. He looks ready to roll. I mean, and his son is a legit player in college football, as well as some other players that he has brought in. Those that were handed their Louis Vuitton luggage, they're out, and those that are now in. So what is your sense of the Colorado season going in?
I think they were horrible last year. Let's get that straight. They were a one-win team last year. They were the worst Power 5 team. They were getting blown out almost in every game. So I think if they can somehow get to 4 wins, I know 4-8 doesn't sound great, but that's a big improvement. And we're looking at their schedule. I think what's going to be challenging for them, if they can somehow get to 2-1, I think because after this game, they have Nebraska comes in there, and then Colorado State, which is probably the most favorable matchup they have all season. If they can at least win 1, if not 2 of those 3 games, then I was like, okay, I think they have a chance to get some momentum going. Because after that, you got Oregon, you got USC. It's not going to be easy. And I think what's going to hurt them is depth-wise, I don't know how deep they are. Like Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son, who's the quarterback, he's definitely got ability, and he's got some really talented receivers. Jimmy Horn came from USF. He's a big-time guy. Travis Hunter was former #1 recruit in the country. He's a two-way player who plays cornerback, will help at receiver. The issue for them is the offensive line, I think, is going to be a big problem because, as you know, that's a position, that's a cohesion position. You need time to gel. Really, none of those guys were there together for spring football. They all are kind of coming together after spring football, so it's going to be a massive work in progress. And I don't know how much talent then they really have in that room. They have a couple of linemen who started in the MAC for Sean Lewis, who was the head coach at Kent State, who's now Deion's offensive coordinator. I think those guys will be the best players up front. I'm very curious. Everybody around college football is really curious to see what they're going to get. I think cautiously optimistic would be about as much as you can hope. But if they can get to 4 wins, I think that's a successful season.
Well, it's obvious that, Deion in Colorado has people's attention. You're going there. Fox big game, big noon game is going there to start the season.
The first 2 weeks we got him. We got him next week in Boulder for Deion's home opener, which is going to be wild when Nebraska comes in.
Yeah, so obviously mission accomplished for Colorado right there, and we'll see what they can do. And also mission accomplished for Colorado. They were the first domino, if I'm not mistaken, of the Pac-12 to be pulled outside of obviously USC and UCLA this year. They were the ones who just bolted. And then the Arizona teams went, and then obviously the Pacific Northwest fell apart, with the exception of Oregon State and Washington State. What is the latest on that going into week 1 of the college football season with the ACC and the 2 teams that are sitting there in the Bay Area? What do you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are things that we think, along with SMU, the 2 Bay Area schools, could end up in some version of what is going to be the ACC. I don't know how stable that's all going to feel, right? Because you've had Florida State being extremely vocal about trying to get out and not happy with the deal. I think what we've seen now are TV deals and the revenue some schools are taking is not what it typically has been, where it's equal shares. So I think that all has been shaken up. I just think there's a wild level of instability for what is left of the Pac-12. I talked to somebody around Washington State recently this past week, and it was like, that is going to be a big game changer if they're relegated to be a Mountain West program. But I don't know what other options, if you're Washington State and Oregon, you have coming up, because it doesn't look like there's any interest from the ACC to go get them. Now, they could go to the AAC, but geographically, that's a nightmare in terms of how do you put schedules together for those other sports. So, I mean, again, I'm glad we have games coming up, because I think this is going to be a really special year in the Pac-12 in the last go-round of it. But everything else is a mess.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.